Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? Since we did kind of talk a little bit about what you do, and we'll kind of transition to that and to talk about some baseball, because we're coming up now on spring training is pretty much upon us and whatnot. But so you are a producer with the MLB Network. So what exactly is it that you do? I mean, I'm sure there's no 2 days that are alike, but just kind of in a general idea for people, what is it that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm even more unique than a lot of people at my network, and this is just because I can be an editor, I can be a cameraman, and I can be a producer, both back at the office, which is in Secaucus, New Jersey, or on site like I am here in Tampa. And that mix and that ratio kind of depends from week to week and from event to event, based on budgets, based on events and what we need. For me, a lot of times I'm dealing with going out to different places, and right now I'm mostly producing in the field, and then I'm providing a second camera if we need it. I was at World Series, and mostly at World Series as a producer, so we would have a list of things that we had to do from a crew standpoint. When I was at World Series, we were doing a T-Mobile pregame show. We did VR 360 stuff, and then we also work on the World Series film, which comes out weeks later. And for the most part of that, I'm producing the crew. I've got a camera guy, I've got an audio guy, and that's what we're doing. But once the game starts, maybe I know what my camera guy is in the third base well, and he's good where he's at, and so I'll pick up the camera and go somewhere else and shoot as well. So it can kind of mix and match, and then different points of the year, it might just be editing some of that stuff. So it's fun for me to have that mix and match, because if I were doing one thing 365, it would probably drive me insane. If I was just sitting there editing video for 365, I would probably get bored or tired of it. If I was on the road for 365, I would probably be divorced, because my wife wouldn't like that. I think it's a nice balance to be able to do some of that stuff, and to have the skill set's nice, because being an editor, I can kind of see what works well as a cameraman and vice versa, and just working with the different cameramen as producers and having that skill set. So I kind of just do a mixed bag of things, and it can be anything from working with sponsors on, like I said, certain sponsor things that they want, or working on features. It's just a mixed bag, which is nice.
Awesome. Yeah. Why don't we start at the World Series? And obviously we can hit on some things, and Sean, we'll let you, and we'll get into some kind of general stuff for the season.
Oh, it's fine. I'm here to talk with Justin as well. The reason I kind of facilitated this whole conglomeration of sports knowledge / brought Justin in to learn from the rest of us. We kind of did that kind of for him as much as he's doing for us. We're letting you kind of learn from the pros here at Huddle Up. Just kind of let you.
I'm drinking the knowledge. Drinking it in.
Just drink it in, But I know you're about to go to the World Series, and I was going to point out before we got going, Justin Daniels not only works for MLB, does a huge baseball fan, always has been all along, and not only that, but I've always known him to be a Dodgers fan. Was a very big Dodgers fan, and I know James is going to get into it. Justin, you got to work the bubble. Yes, last year you got to work the playoff bubble and the World Series bubble. So you were in the bubble filming, and in the grand scheme of things, not only did your life and your career choice build up to a moment where you got to film a World Series, but you got to be essentially on the field filming in a scenario where no other fans were really getting to watch this as your favorite team won the World Series. Is that pretty much summing up what happened last year?
Yeah, and it was interesting because being part of the bubble, there was all these extra rules that were put in. So the first thing was we had to show up 10 days in advance and just stay in a hotel. I mean, like I'm in a hotel room right now, and I couldn't leave the room. Like I'm not saying like I couldn't leave the hotel. I'm saying like I couldn't leave the room for 10 days. The only time I was allowed to leave the room was we were given 1/2 hour a day, where if we called up the security guy, we would allow to walk downstairs, and we could walk in this outdoor section. And then every morning we had to go down and do a COVID test. So there was the only 2 times that I could literally leave my room. And then the rest, I just stayed in there. I got room service, and that was it. So for 10 days,
wow,
just sitting there. And what was funny too is
I was going to say, was there somebody sitting outside your room, like monitoring that?
So for us, we were on the 3rd floor. Like all of us who were in that quarantine section were on the 3rd floor, and there was a hall monitor at the end. So there was a guy just sitting at the end, just making sure. And if we got up into the hallway and walked around, he wouldn't have really cared. But it was just the idea.
I thought maybe they would have tied strings to the closing doors. So if you tried opening, it wouldn't.
As soon as you open it, like a bell rings at the end of the hallway. Just wakes him up.
Yeah. So like, and we were stationed right across the street. I mean, literally within a baseball's throw of where the Rangers were playing at Globe Life. And so while we're there for the World Series, we're there 10 days early. As it's getting through, the NLCS is going on. And as you noted, I'm a Dodgers fan. So I'm watching the game on TV. I'm watching Fox, and I can hear the game because we're right across the street.
Wow.
And the really frustrating part of that was the game, if you've ever watched TV and you ever know about live TV, the game is about 8 seconds delayed.
Oh.
So there was multiple times, like I think it was game 1, it was a close game. It was like 1-1 going into the 9th, and then Blake Trinan gave up a home run. And at first, I'm watching the game, and I'm like really tensely watching it, and I hear this like bang. I'm like, that's weird. And then I look over the TV, and it's a home run. And I'm like, and so for the rest of the NLCS, until we were out of quarantine, so like I think we were finally allowed out of quarantine to actually go into the stadium, I think by the end of game 5. So for like those first 4 games, I'm just watching it and trying to find a way, hoping that like whatever noise is happening is only happening when the Dodgers are at the plate. And if they're not, I'm just like, please, hopefully it's loud enough or it's not loud enough that I'm not hearing it and it's not ruining what I'm watching as a fan, because all is you hear the noise, and then you just your heart is already sunk, and then you've got to sit there and still watch what's going to happen.
You said that you got to go to the stadium then during the NLCS, is what you're saying?
Yeah. So
did you have an escort, or like how did that work? Because you're still going to be like at the World Series, you still have to be quarantined.
Correct.
How's that work?
So what they did was we were in one hotel, and then once you get cleared, once you go through that 10-day protocol, they moved us into a different hotel, which was now everybody who was in that hotel had been, fully quarantined, and you're able to walk around because
so you're in your bubble.
Literally, the bubble is that other hotel. And so once you got there, we had to take a bubble shuttle that would take us to and from the stadium. And it
I like the phrase "bubble shuttle." The images that are going through my mind are hilarious. But continue.
Yeah, it would drop us off at like one tunnel spot underneath the stadium, and then like that's it. And the interesting part is that I never once got into the stands. I wasn't actually allowed to go further away. Like they dropped me off, and I'm right behind home plate, and the furthest I could pretty much walk was behind home plate, and I could maybe get out to the outfield. That was it. Like I couldn't go up into
the on the field level or in the seats.
No, on the field level. I couldn't go up into the seats. I wasn't allowed into the seats. I wasn't allowed anywhere. It's like I had to.
What a shame! What a bummer!
There was fans there, right? They had to keep you guys.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that they had allowed some folks in there.
So which was interesting for me as the Dodgers fan, like. Dodgers are down 3-1 going into the NLCS, going into game 5, game 6, and then they win 5, and then we're there for 6 and 7. And I'm shooting 6 and 7 because at that point we didn't even have a crew yet. My crew was still quarantining, so I was just shooting. And so being on the field after they come back and win was like a really cool moment just to kind of be there and know like, all right, yep, World Series again, here it is. And then, as you said, you're going through the World Series. I mean, the crazy parts of that whole World Series in the bubble, there's so many different things that are so unique. I mean, you're talking also not just a bubble of the World Series, but every game is at the same stadium, all the games.
Right.
And whether it's a Dodgers home game or not, there happen to be more Dodgers fans. So there's this weird feeling of like,
even when you're the road team, it's just kind of your jersey color.
Right. You're changing jersey colors, but there's still more Dodgers fans, and there's just like a weird feeling to it. Like I remember
So
Kershaw,
it's rigged, is what you're telling me. It's rigged.
Kershaw gets taken out during one of the games, and they're technically the away team. The Dodgers are the away team, and he gets taken out, and the crowd was just bemoaning the fact that like Kershaw's out. They're like, no, leave him in, like, and they wanted him in because it was a Dodgers crowd, and it was just such a weird thing. And I'm sitting there like in the third base dugout well, shooting the game, which is right where the Rays are at. And it's weird to feel like you're right next to this team that's supposed to be the home team and supposed to get some type of emotion or love out of something, and like they're the road dogs here, even though they're technically the home team. So I mean, it was a weird situation. And then when it came time for the actual win, I mean, Game 6 is wild because Blake Snell is absolutely lights out, and when he gets taken out, I mean, he's coming in, and I'm no more than 5 feet from him in the dugout, and you can see the physical dejection on his face, but give him credit, he didn't say anything. He
I was going to say, what was his general like? Was his demeanor? Could you tell if he was angry that he was being pulled, or did he seem more upset that he didn't?
No, he was mad that he was getting pulled. And like I said, credit to him for not saying that in the post-game presser and not putting the blame on anybody. But you could tell that he was
and
not.
Still hasn't. They've revisited to him several times. Because I've heard all of the, like down here, like I've heard, and they go to Blake Snell, they're like, are you, like, they keep trying to get him to admit that Cash screwed up.
Are you sure
he
you're
won't
not
do it? Well, are you sure you don't hate Cash? Are you sure you don't want him dead? And they're like,
I laughed during the Super Bowl. I sent a couple of like texts to my friends. I saw one come in during the Super Bowl during the third quarter when Tampa Bay was up, and they're like, the only way the Buccaneers are losing is if Kevin Cash comes out of the stands and pulls Tom Brady.
Yeah, that was great.
This is the one. And yeah, so like it was just so wild. And then all of a sudden, as soon as he got taken out, you could feel it. I mean, even though there's nobody in the stands, like you can feel it. And then I finally make my way over to the Dodgers side for the ninth inning, and I am running with Kershaw from the bullpen because Kershaw by this point goes out to the bullpen just in case. So I'm running with Kershaw from the bullpen into the scrum, and it's just like, what's crazy about it too is like 3 years ago, 2017, Dodgers are facing the Astros, Game 7, and I was going to be shooting. Used to be when the fans were there, like there would be a fan that gives out the hats and the T-shirts, so that they put on the hats and T-shirts. And there was like some fan it was their job to do that. So my job in that day was to follow that fan onto the field as they're giving hats and T-shirts. I'm like, man, Game 7, Dodger Stadium, my team could win. This is amazing. And then sure enough, they get blown out. And there's people that sent me pictures of like Ken Rosenthal doing an interview with somebody else. And I'm in the background holding a camera. And I'm sure I'm focused, but the look on my face is just despondent.
So wait, is it the same fan no matter which team gets them?
Yeah.
So you had to follow, like, it's not like you had the Dodgers fan.
No,
you were just like, screw it. You had to literally follow this fan to deliver championship T-shirts to the team that just embarrassed your favorite team.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So like it's like a sweepstakes.
Well, then you earned this one.
Yeah. Right. So, like
I'd have dropped the camera. I'd have just quit.
Yeah. People sent me like text images of them watching Fox, and they took the text image. They're like,
of your face.
You look real thrilled, and there I am behind Ken Rosenthal, just like.
Because you're there on TV, just deject. Like you didn't even get to have that moment in peace. Like you're like working.
Yeah.
I guess that's the downside.
So it was nice to kind of be on the other side of it for once.
The agony of defeat, yes.
And not just that, but like you said, I mean, the amount of people that can say that they were Dodgers fans and watched that World Series live is very, very small.
Right.
Like, because even if you're talking about 25%, there's 10,000 people there. Not all of them are Dodgers fans. I mean, there's essentially.
Well, and of the ones that are Dodgers fans, how many are actually Dodgers fans?
100% point. Great point. Because there's definitely some people there that like.
It's a popular team. It's a cool logo.
Either it's that or because it's also Texas, there's a lot of Mexican fan base. So you got Julio Urias, you've got a couple of guys that
are just like a fan of someone on the Dodgers, right?
So like the Mexican fan base for Julio Urias was huge, and then Victor Gonzalez. So those two guys have this Mexican fan base that are showing up, which makes it even bigger. And so like he gets the last out, which was
it's a phenomenal situation.
But yeah, I mean, the amount of Dodgers fans that are there for that World Series, less than 7,000.
Yeah,
and I can say that on one of them. I mean, that's.
Well, let's keep in mind that every year that happens, of the percentage of Dodgers fans that saw a World Series win live, when you factor in the last one, those people starting to die off. Justin, you might be one of the few. If the Dodgers were to not win another one, which I know they're, proverbial and kind of these favorites to keep it going. If they don't win another one for a while, you might be one of 7,000 Dodgers fans alive on the planet to see it live, and you got paid to do the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crazy part. And to think of the amount
dope. That's phenomenal.
That have that opportunity. I mean, I always think of it, I'm blessed every time, and just to be there. And I mean, I'm not usually the type of person who gets too, caught up in stuff like that, but like there's a certain point where after they're done celebrating and after I've done my work, and there's the big sign that says LA Dodgers World Series champs, and they're taking pictures. Like, I've got to take a picture of me with that in the background.
Right. Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of hand it back to Big Jim. I had that kind of line of questioning planned because I know you and I were trying to set up an opportunity for you to be on the show from the bubble because you were in there officially. And unfortunately, a lot of those games were on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
So we didn't really get a lot of opportunity to get you on live.
Like without even guessing right now, I can tell you right now, game 1 this year is on a Tuesday. It's just.
Well, there you go.
Probably.
That's how they do it. Tuesday, Wednesday, off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So all of those questions I've been holding since I saw the Dodgers win and knew you were there. So Jim, whatever else you got going.
Yeah, I mean, so we've obviously, a year ago was probably close to around the time when things started to change. I know, Justin, we were talking a little bit but before we went on air tonight, and like I remember I listened to the Preston and Steve show out of Philly every day, and a couple of years ago they went down and they broadcast from the Philly spring training, and they were going to do it again last year. And then obviously everything got shut down. Two of their staff members were actually like they flew down and they talked to a couple people like in a hotel because everything was pretty much shut down. And so it's changed baseball, it changed hockey, it changed everything. So how in the last year has COVID and the pandemic changed? We know how it has changed baseball and the presentation and the ability to go to stadiums, but like, how has it changed what you do and how, the Major League Baseball and MLB Network operate right now?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing I would say has to do with, obviously we test all the time. Anytime I work on site or anytime I work at the building, I'm COVID testing, which that's kind of a policy that they started doing probably, October when when testing became a little bit more easier to access. So that's been one change. The other big one is we don't travel much. It's rare that I'm in this position where I'm traveling to another state. A lot of times we try and get as many freelancers from other areas to do some stuff because they're staying in the state and they've been there. In terms of some of the bigger changes, like for instance, this year, the thing that I always a lot of times come down here for spring training is what we call photo day. And it's basically just this car wash. anytime you see like those, baseball card pictures and the guys holding the bat, that's where it comes from. It comes from photo day.
Okay.
All the players line up in their jersey, and basically 3 or 4 teams a day do it, and it just kind of rotates in this carousel. So today the Phillies were doing it, and usually there's all these different media from, the regular photographers to Topps has got a crew there, whatever sports cards are got a crew, or different types of like Fox Sports might have one, ESPN might have one, and they've got all their list of things to do, whether it's just like, give me your name and hey, you're watching MLB on Fox, something like that. And so one of the things that I do is we'll do these MLB international reads. So MLB is worldwide, and it's all in all these different countries. And instead of having all these countries that have a station come up and show up, to spring training, and there'd be 50,000, different stations here, MLB International handles that. And so I go as a crew, and my job is to get these reads for 30 stations. So there might be a read from Israel. There might be a read from United Kingdom. There might be a read from Panama. And so that's kind of our drill. So we do that.
Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?
So when you're getting those international reads, and I don't mean to interject, like are you targeting certain players that are popular in those regions?
Yeah, usually what it is, like MLB International gets the request from this, from the different stations, and a lot of the stations know, like if it's Mexico or if it's Panama, like yes, this is the guy that plays, is from Panama. We would like to get him to say this, but if it's not him, maybe these 5 or 6 other guys would be interested. So usually like the list is always like the top 10 guys that you can create in your head of the guys that you want. Now you go there with that list, doesn't mean you get that list. A great example and some insight for you guys. We would love to get Didi Gregorius today for the Phillies because he speaks like 5 languages. He's phenomenal. He's
that's perfect. Yeah.
He's awesome for stuff like this, however, because he had issues with his visa because basically the consulate in Curacao was closed. He is not on camp yet.
Wow.
So Didi Gregorius, who's with the Phillies, is not yet at camp because of visa issues. And that's not –
and I'm sure that they'll quarantine whatever once he is here. Yeah.
And it's not super weird. I mean, this happens a decent bit, especially with like the minor league guys and their visas because –
well, and they only re-signed him, a week or so ago anyway. It wasn't like it, he's been under contract the whole time.
But you would think that a guy at his level would have a little bit faster path through the visa system.
You would think.
So, we go there today, and but he's
not everywhere in the world has the same me first attitude as the United States. Some of them are like, you are still just a citizen of this country.
He showed up and it was closed, so it didn't even matter. When the Met,
he's like, hey, can I get? Hello.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to the United States to make millions of dollars.
Moose out front could have told you,
Somebody called.
We go down, and obviously. He's not on the list, so maybe we try and get somebody else. But it's a mixed match of the game of things. But so like today, where what there would normally be on a day like this, 30-some crews, there's 2. There's 1 photographer and us, and that's it. And we've got to do a certain distancing. The other thing
I was going to try to let you know, like if you needed help at Phillies camp, I'd have been happy to get over there. Clearwater. I was going to bring Nick by. I was watching Nick all day today. Took a day off of teaching. Would have been able to help hold a camera. I've done that before.
Yeah, and then the other thing that we do is they've got different tier systems. So if you're tier 1, you're a player, you're a coach. If you're tier 2, you're media that has access to players. So like when I was in the bubble in the World Series, tier 2. And then if you're like media that's on the concourse that's never going to get close to the players, you're tier 3. So there are different things that are new and different in that regard. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this is always changing too. I mean, even from team to team, this is one of the things that I always find so amazing with MLB, and I'm sure it's with the other leagues as well, is how one team feels the rules are set does not necessarily mean that that's how the other team views them. So one PR staff might feel like, all right, you've got to stay 6 feet away and this is it, and don't even come close. And then another PR staff is like, the players are going to come out and you just tell them where to stand. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Great. So it just depends on the PR staff, team to team, it can all be different. And so
I was saying maybe like where they're from, like their family members, like, obviously like a team from like New York or Philadelphia where like, everything was very like concentrated early and everybody got panicked from the virus versus a team from say,
Florida.
The desert.
Yeah.
Maybe like, yeah.
Even
or a
just
team from, I don't know, Florida might not give a crap.
Even just the personality of the PR guys is or the PR staffs in general is always
I
a
guess
big
that makes sense.
To me. There are some PR staffs that are like, if I send out a request, Rob Butcher from the Cincinnati Reds is their PR guy, and he's a very buttoned up guy. If you ask him for something, he tells you yes, no, A, B, C, D. This is when this guy's going to come. This is when, and he's very buttoned up. Then you get some guys like Blake from the Rangers, who's like, send me your request, and then when you get down here, you guys can ask the player yourself. Okay.
Wow.
So it can be a mixed bag of just from PR to PR staff of some guys are like, nope, I'm very hands-on. I'll bring the player to you. You stay there. And some are like, I told the players, it's on you. If you want to ask them, if they want to say yes, up to you. So from team to team, from player to player, it can be different just based on the PR. So when you add in the COVID restrictions, same thing.
Crazy. And a lot of people are going to ask Jim where Huddle Up ranks on the MLB's tiers, tier 1, 2, 3. Tier 16 is where we wind up, which means we're not only not allowed in the stadium, they won't even let us in the state where the game's being played.
No, that's true.
We have to watch it from a full state away at least, even if it's our home state. I have to leave the state of Florida if we're covering a Marlins game, which is pretty crazy.
Well, that's why it's also helpful that I'm an Orioles fan. So
because
I don't.
The Orioles are willing to overlook that if you're willing to. If you admit you're watching an Orioles game, they'll just put you at home plate.
No matter where you're watching, we'll allow you to do it.
Like, you're going to cover an Orioles game? You're like, yeah. They'll be like, you could just be the umpire behind home plate. We don't have one right now.
I heard a funny one yesterday. I guess apparently the Miami Marlins are talking about allowing 20% fans for starting the year, and I heard somebody respond saying, that's really advantageous, thinking that they're going to double their attendance during a pandemic.
I believe I shared that on social media. I'm very excited about that. Very good. Very good play. And since Jim mentioned his favorite team, I had one other question for Justin that's outside, and it just seems very relevant now. Justin, you're kind of plugged in. You're down here at spring training. You're around MLB. Let's talk about Baltimore for a second. Being on the inside, because from the outside it looks pretty grim. Is there anything you've seen on the inside or from spring training that leads you to believe that Baltimore is set up to maybe be a contender?
I mean, maybe I saw a stat last week that gave like the odds for teams to not win the World Series, make the playoffs. Right. And the Orioles were at 0.0% odds at making the play. Is there
anything you're seeing better than 0.0?
I would say that the Orioles have a phenomenal chance of getting the number 1 pick.
Well, there you go.
I mean, they've got.
There's hope.
I don't think they're the worst team in the league, though. But they're at the bottom.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
It's like, if there are fish that feed on the bottom of the ocean or the water, they're eating Orioles, is what you're telling me.
They're link number 2 in the food chain at the bottom.
There's not a lot of links ahead of them.
An argument could be made that they could be 4th in their division. An argument could be made.
Above the Blue Jays?
No, the Blue Jays are good. Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays are good. Orioles are not. Let's not make that.
Orioles not good.
No, the Red Sox have sold off pieces.
Oh, that's true.
The argument that the Red Sox could finish 5th. So
There is an argument to be had.
So James, your hope to not be last rests on Boston not being good.
Better than the Red Sox. I'll take that hope every day.
Keep in mind, that hope has nothing to do with Baltimore being good.
No,
the hope is that Boston will be worse.
Trust me, that's fine.
And as someone who hates Boston, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'll take what I can get.
But keep in mind, Boston does not have a great track record of being terrible. I mean, they did for a long time, not recently.
I mean, the real issue is that if Boston is bad, their path back to being good is not far.
No, it's not. Whereas Baltimore, who's already bad,
they're willing to spend it. So, or most years they're willing to spend it, so they can get back pretty quickly. Baltimore's biggest problem isn't just what they have on their field; is their scouting is not great. Their farm system.
It's what they're willing to spend.
But their farm system isn't good. So even in areas where you're not having to spend a lot, they don't have a lot of talent at the bottom levels.
Farm system, scouting,
ownership,
team.
It's bad.
Roster.
It's not good.
I mean,
they do have one of my favorite pitchers in King Felix Hernandez, which I can root for that guy no matter what. Sure. I feel bad that he bounced out of last year because of COVID, and he would have been on a Braves team that might have been the difference of them, not losing to the Dodgers in 7. So maybe I should be thankful that he took that year off. But King Felix is great. I mean, they've got some pieces. Trey Mancini is going to be back this year, and
that's a huge story.
Yeah, and he missed all.
It's not quite Alex Smith huge, but it's pretty huge.
Right, and he missed all of 2020. So him coming back will be big. They got a few players that can be interesting in Montcastle or Santander, but much more than bottom of the league, 4th place. I don't see it.
So to paraphrase, the answer to the question, have you seen anything to make them contenders? To paraphrase, the answer is no.
No, unless it's contenders for a top pick.
There you go.
Oh, well, there you go.
Every year, if the Capitals fail in the playoffs, when the Cowboys fail, I always go I'm kind of envious of these fans of the Florida Panthers, because they never have hope. And then I remind myself every springtime, I'm like, you're right. It is kind of nice to be a fan where you have no hope going
zero.
That year, the Orioles went and they lost in the ALCS to the Orioles. I was like, that was such a fun year. Because I never saw that coming. It never.
And then the next year you go right back to no hope,
right back to mediocrity, and
it's gonna be.
It was wonderful, but we want to get predictions for the year. But before I do that, the only other question I have is obviously, and it may have even been the World Series thing, but what's one of the most interesting things that you've done or seen in your job?
Yeah, I mean, the bubble situation is completely unique unto itself. I think what's interesting, too, is for me, just 2 months prior to the whole pandemic going on, I was actually able to go with 2 players from the Washington Nationals, who at that time were the World Series champions, Aaron Barrett and Adam Eaton. And I was able to go with them.
Philly, Adam Eaton.
No. Different. Yep. Different player.
I got real excited there for a second. I was just, I know that guy, and you're like, different guy.
This guy is a left fielder, but I got to go with them on the USO tour to visit some troops over in Romania and Poland, and so that was really interesting. Not only are you going to these countries that I don't know that I would have ever stepped foot in general, and it's been a couple of chances where I've done something like that. I got to go with Jan Gomes years ago when he went back home to Brazil for just to visit. He hadn't been back really since his playing days. So, but going on that USO tour with those 2 guys and then seeing the military response from them. And then on our way home, we're on this big, huge military aircraft, and I'm getting to have a catch, like a baseball catch, a nice 40-foot, 50-foot, really throwing it out there with an MLB player on a large military craft in the middle of the air. it's just a wild experience, and thinking that,
I specifically remember you sharing those photos and videos on Facebook and social media, and thinking like, what an unbelievable job this guy has.
And so unpredictable. Like, it's not something that you go into that job or even get the job. Like, even a week
photos out the open doors of the airplane and things.
Right. Even a week prior to that, if you had told me that would have happened, I would have been like, nope, I wouldn't have believed it. And so to have experiences like that, and like to be able to go all around the world and all around the country. I mean, for that matter, Sean knows me from college. And so like when I left college, I remember thinking like, all right, I'm going to be in this one little area, and I didn't really think much of travel. And then here I am, and I've, been in, a handful of different countries because of baseball. And I've definitely been all across this country because of baseball. And so it's given me more than enough opportunities and blessings that I could never repay.
And you've been to Denny's in how many states?
43 different states.
43 different states.
And
up to 43.
And the 7 states that I'm missing.
I was going to say, can you name the 7?
Yes. And the 7 states that I'm missing don't have baseball, right? Like, they don't have some strong connection. It's Alaska.
You're going to have to like flank in from another state.
Right. It's Alaska. It's the 2 Dakotas. It's Idaho. It's Nebraska. It's Wyoming. Did I get them all? So, yeah.
Have you been to one in Hawaii?
Yes. I did that on my honeymoon with my wife. So,
dope. So you need to take a second honeymoon to Alaska, is what you're saying.
So here's the plan. Here's how I think this works. Is I've got to probably take a separate.
That's the hardest.
Now, Alaska does have one major baseball event, which is during the summer solstice when it's almost a 24-hour sun. They do have a 24-hour baseball like tournament, which is like slightly. It's kind of like not quite summer catch like winter ball for college, but it's something like that. It's like it's the college guys that aren't quite in the majors, that aren't drafted yet, and it's just a tournament, and they play all. So we actually have sent a crew there once or twice. So there's a chance I could do that. Then as for the other 6, I've literally just got to park it somewhere and then just make the drive.
That's it.
Just go through the Dakotas, Idaho,
Wyoming. You're gonna have to make a Denny's trip.
Yep. Just gotta
make it work. All right, Justin. Before we close up here tonight, we're not too far away, about a little over a month from the start of the baseball season. So we're gonna put you on the spot. Do you have a prediction, World Series prediction for 2021?
If I had to take a guess, I'm gonna say Dodgers, White Sox. Being on the White Sox, I think they've got all of the talent in terms of the offense. They had some of the pieces, in terms of pitching, that I think that they're just that much closer. The Yankees are the thing that everybody thinks they're big and bad, and they've got all the talent there. But you got to worry about the health of their top end players, Judge, Stanton, and their pitching staff isn't as deep as it used to be, especially now that they don't have Tanaka. If there's ever any issues with Cole, you can just put their season in the hole. That's it. It's gone. And they've got an uphill battle just to get a lot of stock in him. Yeah, they've got an uphill battle just to get through their own division. I mean, I think the Blue Jays are going to be better, and the Rays constantly find a way.
And the Orioles can't be worse.
Yeah. So, the Dodgers, the biggest issue with the Dodgers repeating would be the Padres. I mean, the Padres might be the second best team in the entire league.
Well, they're spending their money, that's for sure.
They're spending their money, but the thing I always say is like, thank goodness they're spending their money, because how many teams, like these owners and some of the GMs, they make it seem like they don't have the money, or they don't want to spend the money, or they're just really capped against it. These teams have money, spend it.
We're not talking about the Orioles anymore.
Yeah,
yeah, that conversation's gone.
So, to see that the Padres are spending the money, good for them.
Good for them. They haven't for a long time.
Yeah,
they kind of just sat there in their little own hole, and so that's a good point. And
when and they only have a few more years left of some of their players, so like you take that, that risk, you take that chance. I mean, it's kind of something that Jim and I have talked about before with like the Penguins and Malkin and Crosby. Like, you've got a window, maximize that window. Like, this is your chance, maximize it now. So if you wait until Machado in 2 or 3 years is past that point, maybe all things start falling down. So like, you've got the window, go for it. So the Padres have done everything right in this offseason, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Off seasons could be, you could win the World Series of the offseason and not make the playoffs.
You say the Dallas Cowboys have won a lot
sometimes
of
you pay Cliff Lee and you pay all these other pitchers to win you a World Series, and the Yankees still get you. So you never know.
We still at least got them there. So, but yeah, I mean, if I'm guessing,
I think the Padres would take that. The Padres, if they just got in, would be like, see,
yeah. If I'm guessing, I'm saying Dodgers, White Sox. But yeah, if you go up and down the list, Braves, Padres. If I had to take a guess, I wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers are the other wild card team along with the Padres, just because
like a sneaky team that could get in.
Well, here's the thing: as good as the Mets are, and as good as I think Lindor makes them, the rest of that division is really good. The Phillies are good. I mean, the Phillies were a really good team last year. Their pitching wasn't good. Their pitching is a little bit better. The Marlins are an up-and-coming team. It might be tougher to get to 85, 90 wins than you think in that division. And if you're not the number one team, then you're sitting there, how do I get to that wild card spot? Whereas the Brewers,
without the extra wins, yeah.
Right, the Brewers might be behind the Cardinals who got paid to take Nolan Arenado. The Brewers might be behind them because they're going to steal wins from the Cubs, from the Pirates, who aren't even showing up. So the Brewers might be the two on there. And the same thing, the Padres will have little to nobody other than the Dodgers to deal with, so they'll rank up. I think the Dodgers and the Padres are about as locked as you can get for a playoffs.
Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?